Hello everyone. Today we will be talking about basics of psychological testing. The basic topics of psychological testing which we would cover today is what is a test and what is an item, types of test, steps of test construction. Let's start with what is a test. Test in simple terms is a measurement device which is used to quantify behavior or aid in understanding or predict behavior. Three things used to quantify behavior. Number one, understand behavior or predict behavior. Any kind of test. We have taken several tests during our school or high school, college. So these tests help in evaluation what we have learned. These are usually achievement tests, but that is something we will get into later. But test, in simple terms, is a measurement device of anything. In this case, it is behavior. What is an item? Now, item is something which makes up the test. Like if I talk about photosynthesis is used uh, in photosynthesis is used by plants. True or false? So this might be an item for a biology test of class 6. So item is all the things which make up a test. Now a test might have different aspects and the item will fulfill in measuring that particular sub area of the test. We can take an example here. Here you can see it's a new FFI, part of new FFI. And so new FFI questionnaire, this entire thing is a test. But you see these statements, I am the life of the party, feel comfortable with myself. These are your items. And there is a 5-point rating scale. This is how they are measuring it. Understood? Moving on, let's move on to specific what is a psychological test. Now, a psychological test is a set of items that are designed to measure characteristics of human beings. Specifically, characteristics of human beings. Now, as human beings, we have behavior that can be covert or overt. Overt behavior is the observable activity of humans, while covert is something which takes place within an individual. Now, this could be either feelings or thoughts. So, now moving on to different types of tests in psychology mainly. Psychological tests can be divided into individual tests or group tests. These actually depend on the administrator. Administrator is someone, in fact, who is taking the test. So if the administrator has given the test in a group, it's a group test. If the administrator is evaluating the test individually, then it's an individual test. Any type of test can be the group test or individual test, but in some cases it's easier to give it individually, like Wechsler adult intelligence scale that is easier to be given individually. Now coming to the types of test, we have the ability test, attitude test, personality test, and we have the neuropsychological tests. So achievement test is the first part of ability test. Achievement test is, it measures previous learning. Aptitude test is something which measures potential for acquiring a specific skill. Intelligence test is the potential to solve problems, adapt to change, and what the person has learned from the experience. Personality tests can be either structured, where there are yes or no, or there is a rating scale, or there is true and false. Like we just saw the new FFI, that is a structured objective scale test. Projective tests are the where an ambiguous test stimuli is given and then the responses are taken based on that stimuli. So now if we take an example, we have the TAT mainly, and we have the Rorschach. TAT is the thematic apperception test, and part of TAT is CAT, which is the children's version. Now moving to steps of test construction, which is the most important part of this area which we are talking about today. So there are 3 steps: planning of the test, item writing, and item analysis. So let's start with planning of the test. There are 2 parts of the planning of the test. Okay, so if we see the UGC Net syllabus, actually they start from item writing. But planning of the test is very important, because if someone directly goes into writing, then what happens is they are likely to produce a lopsided test. Now what is lopsided test? What happens is, without a plan, what happens is that some areas will be overrepresented while the other areas would remain untouched completely. The 2 parts are test specifications and specific form of test. Specific form of test is easier to understand. I'll just explain. Is that how the test would be presented? Like, would the test be true or false, yes or no, multiple choice, rating scale, what would it be? So that we have to understand while planning the test. Test specification is basically what the test is going to measure. The test I'm making, what will it measure? Will it measure intelligence? Will it measure personality, aptitude, attitude? What? Then, whatever it is going to measure, like if I take intelligence, what would the content areas be? Now, content areas of intelligence would be memory, maths, English, um, front recall, back recall. These would be the content areas of the test. Now, if there are 5 content areas of the test, and then the items are based on the content areas, Suppose for each content area there would be 3 items. It means there would be in total 3 fives, 3 fives of 15. There will be in total 15 items in the test which I'm making. But this is just the first part, because in the last step, which is the item analysis, a lot of items are removed so that the test is even stronger. Now coming to the item writing. Item writing, so Develis actually said that there are 6 things which we should keep in mind while making the test, while actually writing the test, which is, the first one is defining clearly what we want to measure. This is something we saw even in the planning. This is, and to do this, we need a substantive theory. And the theory comes from literature review and whatever the, like suppose again if we take intelligence theory, intelligence scale, there are a lot of theories. So the test material which we are making, these will be dependent on the theory. Then we generate an item pool. Okay, so item pool is for each areas which we just saw, sub areas, content areas, there would be, we would make a lot of items which explain those content areas, and this would be our item pool. We should avoid exceptionally long items if the items are going for like 20 words, 30 words. That is something which would become confusing and misleading. People might not understand what we are trying to say by those items. So we should avoid long items. We should keep the level of reading difficulty appropriate to those who would complete the scale. So suppose if we are giving the scale to middle schoolers and we have kept the difficulty of English language something similar to people who do PhD or master's level English, and it's very difficult, so those middle schoolers might not even understand the content or understand what the item is trying to ask them. So they might give wrong answers or incomplete answers. Then it's redundant. Avoid double-barreled items that convey 2 or more ideas at the same time. For example, if we want to agree or disagree to an item, the measuring style is agreeing or disagreeing, and the item is, suppose I vote Democratic because I support social programs. Now, it's known that Democrats do not support social programs. So when that sentence is having 2 meanings, the person might not be able to understand. Suppose if the person is a Democratic and they know that they do not support social programs, so they do not know whether to disagree or agree with this statement. So we need to keep uh, items which are conveying 2 or more ideas away. We have to consider mixing positively and negatively worded items, because what happens is that people tend to mostly agree with the items, and this is a bias which would be created. So if we mix those items, then the bias would be, can be reduced. Moving on to the third part of test construction, which is the most important part, which is the test and item analysis. Now we have created the item pool with all the items which we need. So why do we need item analysis? Item analysis is needed to shorten the test, make the test very compact, and but also it is testing everything which we want to measure, and with it we can increase reliability and validity. Now item analysis is a statistical technique. Simply, if I have to say, it is used to select and reject the items of the test. Now we saw previously there are areas. Okay, we took intelligence test and there are areas. Suppose mathematics is the part we are seeing. Now from the pool of 20 items, we choose 4 items. We choose 4 items, of course it's based on some criteria, but just to understand, we choose those 4 items because those 4 items are able to completely explain the area of mathematics. Now those 20 items, the other 16 items are redundant because those are repetitions, and we do not want repetitions. With those 4 items and all the other items for other sub areas which we choose, it makes the test very powerful. Less items, but has the ability to test all the areas of intelligence. Now, the item analysis can happen either qualitatively or quantitatively. So, in the qualitatively form, either the content can be seen or the form. Not either, content and form is seen. In quantitatively, it is in terms of the statistical properties, which is the item difficulty and item validity. Now, content validity is seen in qualitative analysis. Now, what is content validity? Content validity is the degree to which the test is able to evaluate all the aspect of the test. Suppose the test is aptitude test and there are 6 areas. Now content validity is to see if the test is actually measuring all the 6 areas of aptitude. This is content validity. Item validity, on the other hand, is basically if the item is able to measure what it is supposed to measure. Like for the 6 areas, if one area's item is something, so is that item able to measure that one area? That is item validity in short. Content validity is if the entire test is able to measure what it is supposed to measure. Item is the particular single item, which is it able to measure that particular area or not. So this was the basics of psychological testing. I hope you understand. If you have any doubts, you can leave comment down below. Thank you so much for listening.